For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, lab on me going all the way. For the record, ain't trying to link, no time to waste. For the record, for the record.
Alright, what's going on, guys? If you guys are only here to see how to set up your macros and nutritional information for this video, then skip to this timestamp here, and we're going to go through at that point everything you need to know about setting up your macros for whatever goals you may have, whether it's weight loss, maintaining your current weight, or even trying to put on weight and bulk up. So, like I said, skip to that timestamp, and I will see you guys later in the video.
How's it going, YouTube? Just pulled up to the gym. Now I'm getting ready to head in and do a leg workout. However, my legs are still a little bit sore from the leg workout earlier this week, so I'm thinking rather than doing any kind of major compound movements, which is what I'm kind of scheduled for, I'm going to switch the whole workout routine over to more of a high volume, high intensity, superset style focused, posterior chain focused leg workout. So I think that's kind of what I'm feeling today, just to kind of keep things interesting and again, not try and tax anything too much because, as I said, my legs are still a little bit sore from earlier in the week. And then after the leg workout, I got to hit up 30 minutes on the stair mill, cardio today as usual. Every other day is what I'm kind of doing right now. And that's kind of the plan for right now. Just to give you guys a little bit of an update, this morning I weighed in at 169.8 pounds. So yeah, that's definitely a huge kind of milestone there. Finally broke 170, down almost 5 pounds, I believe, from the beginning of this whole series, which is only like 2 weeks, so about 5 pounds in 2 weeks. So that's not too bad, especially coming from basically eating almost whatever I wanted to cleaning up my diet pretty good. That's about what I would expect. Hopefully I'll start losing, well, what I'll probably end up starting to do is I'll start losing around a pound to a pound and a half at most per week. That's kind of like my ideal range. I don't want to be losing too much more than that because then that's going to be starting to cut into muscle loss as opposed to just fat loss. So we'll have to kind of play it by ear, adjust our macros and our cardio as needed. But for now, we're headed in the right direction and progress is going smooth. So yeah, really happy with that. Now, just to kind of give you another update, today I went shopping a little bit, picked up some groceries for meal prep tomorrow. Going to be going over some nutritional information, kind of how you set up your macros and all that kind of stuff, probably in tomorrow's video. I'm not sure if I'll be doing any kind of like cooking informational video. That might come in the next week or two, kind of meal prep videos. But I'm pretty sure we're going to go through like how I set up my macros, how you guys can set up your macros, and basically how you would start tracking them going forward if you were to start a prep or start trying to diet down, anything like that. Now, tomorrow for me is actually a scheduled rest day. Now, whether or not I take that rest day is kind of up in the air at this point. The way I program my rest days in is I tend to do them more on an as-needed basis as opposed to this is when my rest day is, this is what I'm going to do, and so on and so forth. Which means as long as I'm not overly sore or time isn't an issue or I don't feel like I need the rest day, I generally won't take it. So we'll have to kind of see and play tomorrow by ear whether or not I actually do take a rest day. If anything, it might just come down to needing a little bit of extra time in order to get some stuff done around the house, clean up, cook, all that stuff. So we'll have to kind of play tomorrow by ear, but that's kind of the plan for right now. I am about to finish chugging the rest of my pre-workout here. And then we're going to go in and crush this workout, crush some cardio, get home, crush some food, crush the rest of the day. And why don't you guys, while you're at it, just crush that like button, crush that subscribe button. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the gym. Hopefully you enjoy this quick workout.
Alright, now let's get into the main portion of this vlog. So we're going to go over how I set up my macros and track my calories on a weekly basis and how you can do the same thing in order to start hitting your goals, whether that be weight loss, maintaining your current weight, or even trying to bulk or put on weight. In order to do this, I'm going to use myself as an example and go through my exact numbers and what I'm currently doing, and then you can translate this into your numbers based on the information that we'll be going over. I'm also going to put stuff on the screen on either side here somewhere so that you can follow along a little easier while we're going through this. Now, first, we need to figure out something. We need to figure out our TDEE, or our total daily energy expenditure. Basically what that means is it's the amount of calories that our body expends or burns in a single day in order to maintain our current weight. So the way I like to figure this out is it's actually going to be a range. So we're going to start at a low end and then we're going to go to a high end. And this is all going to be based on the total daily activity of the individual. So the way we figure this out is we're going to use our body weight times a number, and that number is going to be between 14 to 17. 14 being at the very low end, say somebody who has a desk job, they're very sedentary, they don't move around a lot during the day, versus a 17 or the high end of the scale is going to be somebody, say like a construction worker. You have a very physically demanding job, you're moving around constantly, you're using a lot more energy throughout the entire day, you're going to be on the higher end of that scale, meaning that you're burning a lot more calories per day in order to just maintain your current weight. Now we're going to use myself as an example, like I said. So we're going to take my body weight, which is 170 pounds, times 14, which is going to give us the low end of our scale, or 2,380 calories. And then we're going to take that high end of the scale, which is 170 times 17, and that's going to give us 2,890 calories. So that's going to be our scale range. We've got between just about 2,400 to 2,900 calories. Now that's a pretty big range. However, we're going to find ourselves somewhere in that range for our total daily energy expenditure. Now this part is where you're going to basically judge yourself, and you want to be really true and honest about yourself as to how physically active you are throughout the day. So say for example, somebody like I said who has a desk job, they're not moving around very much during the day. Even if you're going to the gym, say 3-4 times a week, you're probably going to be on that lower end of the scale, say 14 to 15. Versus somebody like a construction worker moving around a lot throughout the entire day, you're going to be on the higher end of that scale, say a 16 or 17. For myself, I don't have a sedentary job, but I also don't have a very physically demanding job, so I put myself pretty much right in the center, and I like to use a number of around 15, 15 and a half, even 16 in order to calculate my TDEE. So for me, I'm going to use 15, which is kind of right in that center range, and I'm going to multiply that by my body weight, and that's going to put me at 2,550 calories as my TDEE. Now, what does that mean? That means that in order to maintain 170 pounds per day, doing exactly what I'm doing right now, including gym, work, everything else that I do throughout the entire day, I need to eat approximately 2,550 calories in order to maintain my weight. So what does that mean in terms of our goals? Do we want to lose weight or gain weight? If we want to lose weight, then we have to be eating less than that, or we have to be in what's called a caloric deficit. If we want to gain weight, we're going to be in a caloric surplus, eating more than that number. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to base our calories around that TDEE, and we're going to figure out how many calories under it we need to eat or over it depending upon our goals. So for the purpose of this video, we're only going to be focusing on how many calories we need to eat under in order to be in a caloric deficit in order to lose weight. Now, if you guys want to bulk or gain weight, you can basically take this exact same principle and the exact same information we're using, just go in the opposite direction, and that'll make more sense as we go through it. But as I said, my TDEE is going to be 2,550 calories. Now, in order to lose weight, I like to go about 250 calories less than my TDEE, meaning that I'm going to be at around 2,300 calories as a daily caloric intake in order to lose weight. Now personally, I would not recommend going beyond a caloric deficit of 250 calories to start with, because you want to try and get a baseline moving forward, and you also don't want to put your body into any kind of starvation mode or shock it too much, because the metabolism is a very sensitive thing, and if you start trying to starve yourself, it's actually going to work in reverse, and even though you may lose weight, it's going to be storing a lot more fat as opposed to burning that fat. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 2,300 and we're going to use that as our base number to start with. Now, what do we do from here? Well, we need to figure out a couple of things. Mainly, we need to figure out how we're going to break those calories down into protein, carbs, and fats. So to start off, I like to start with my protein. For protein, for men and women alike, I like to use a range of between 0.8 to 1.1 grams per pound of body weight. That means for me, at 170 pounds, that would be a protein intake between 136 grams per day to 187 grams per day. Now, how do we figure out where we land on this scale? Well, it's going to depend upon your body fat percentage. So I'm going to throw a couple of images up on the screen here, and then I want you guys to be as truthful and honest about yourself as possible when you pick out what percentage you think you're at. And you'll see as I throw these images up what I mean. All right, now that you've got that number in mind, here's how I would break down my protein. So for me right now, I know that I'm sitting right around kind of 12 to 14% body fat. So I'm going to use 1 gram per pound of body weight as my calculation, meaning that my total protein intake for the day is going to be 170 grams. All right, now that we've figured out our protein intake for the day, we need to figure out our fat intake. So for fat, it's again going to be a range, but this time it's going to be percentage based off of your total caloric intake. So we're going to start with that 2300 number again. That's my total caloric intake for the day. And then we're going to take a range of 20 to 30% of that 2300 calories, and that's going to be our fat intake for the day. So how do we do this? We're going to do 2300 times 20%, and then 2300 times 30%. And that's going to give us a range of 460 calories to 690 calories that we can devote to fat. Now, how do we figure out how many grams of fat that is? Well, that's really simple. Fat is equal to 9 calories per gram. So in order to figure out how many grams of fat that is, we're going to divide those numbers by 9, giving us approximately 51 grams of fat as our 20% number, and then 77 grams of fat as our 30% number. So to make things a little simpler, we're going to say we're going to eat between 50 to 75 grams of fat per day, and that's going to be our range. Now, how do you decide which end of the range that you're going to go with? This is going to depend upon your personal preference. So do you like to have more carbs throughout the day, such as breads, grains, rice, things like that, sugars, fruits? Or do you prefer to have more fatty foods, things like peanut butter, nuts, whole eggs, avocados, oils, things like that that have a lot more fat in them as opposed to a lot more carbs? Now, this is going to be your decision. For me personally, and the way my body works and how I like to eat, I know that I'm going to be on the lower end of that range. So I'm going to be at around 50 grams of fat per day as opposed to the higher end, because I like to have more carbs throughout the day. Again, this is going to vary based on your personal preferences. But once we figure that out, then we can calculate our last macronutrient, which is going to be carbs. So how do we do this? Well, we've already got our protein and we have our fat. We're going to take both of those numbers, figure out how many calories both of those numbers are, add them together, subtract them from that 2300 total, and then whatever that remaining number is, that's going to be our carbs. So for me, remember I'm starting at 2300 calories, I have 170 grams of protein per day, and I have 50 grams of fat. Now, how do we calculate how many calories that is? Protein and carbs are equal to 4 calories per gram. So we take that 170, multiply it by 4, and that's going to give us 680 calories. Now that's our protein. Now we need to figure out how many calories are in our 50 grams of fat. And if you remember, there's 9 calories per gram of fat. So we take our 50 grams of fat times 9, and that's going to give us 450 calories. Now we have 680 calories from protein and 450 calories from fat. We're going to add those together, and that's going to give us 1,130 calories. We're going to take that number, which is the combination of our protein and our fat, and we're going to subtract it from 2,300 calories, which is our total daily caloric intake, which is going to give us 1,170 calories, which we can devote to carbohydrates. Now, 1 gram of carbohydrates, just like protein, is equal to 4 calories. So we're going to take that number, 1,170 calories, divide it by 4, and that's going to give us approximately 293 grams of carbs. Just for simplicity's sake, we'll say 290 carbs. And there we go. We figured out our carbs, we figured out our protein, and we figured out our fat. And this gives us our total caloric intake for the day in order to be in a caloric deficit and in order to lose weight throughout the week. Now, how do we determine how much weight we're going to lose? In order to lose approximately 1 pound of body weight per week, we need to be in a total weekly caloric deficit of 3,500 calories. That's the approximate caloric value of 1 pound of fat or 1 pound of weight. That means in order to be in a weekly caloric deficit of 3,500 calories, we need to be in a daily caloric deficit of approximately 500 calories. Now, if you remember at the start of this, I said that I would not recommend going below a caloric deficit of 250 calories to begin with. And that's because as you're starting a diet, as you're starting prep, what you're going to be doing is you're mainly going to be cleaning up your diet. You're going to start getting into a schedule. You're going to start tracking your macros, tracking your calories, and more than anything, that's going to begin your weight loss. Once you get to a point where you've started to plateau, you're no longer losing as much weight per week, say you're no longer losing more than half a pound a week, that's when you're going to start looking at increasing your caloric deficit. So to quickly recap what we've gone over so far, we figured out our total daily energy expenditure, or our TDEE, and we were sitting at around 2,550 calories as our base metabolic rate, or how many calories we needed to eat on a daily basis in order to maintain approximately 170 pounds for me with my current daily activities and how much energy I'm expending throughout the day. From there, we decided that we're going to go into caloric deficit in order to start losing weight. And we decided that we didn't want to go over a 250 calorie caloric deficit to begin with, so we dropped our daily caloric intake down to 2,300, and we started basing our numbers off of that. From there, we figured out our protein intake. Again, this was a range between 0.8 grams per pound of body weight to 1.1 grams per pound of body weight, depending upon your personal body fat percentage. After we figured out that number, which for me was 170 grams, then we needed to figure out our fat. Fat was a range between 20% of our total caloric intake for the day to 30% of that caloric intake. For me, I like to go on the lower end of that scale based on my food preferences and what I like to eat. That put me at 50 grams of fat per day. Next, we figured out how many carbohydrates we're going to be eating throughout the day based on how many grams of protein we're eating and how many grams of fat we're eating, and their total caloric value versus the total caloric intake we're going to be eating in a single day. That put us at about 290 grams of carbs, and that's going to be 170 grams of protein, 50 grams of fat, 290 grams of carbs. It's going to put us just under 2,300 calories, and with that, we should be looking at losing approximately half a pound to 1 pound of body weight per week. Again, I don't recommend going into a greater caloric deficit to start because you're going to be losing more weight as you clean up your diet, and if you're going to be doing cardio, you're going to end up burning even more calories throughout the day as opposed to just your total daily energy expenditure. So this is where we're going to get into another video later down the road discussing the extent of cardio and how you can use it as a tool in order to lose weight. But for the main purpose of this video, we're only setting up our macros and going over that process. Now, if you were looking at trying to maintain your current weight, you would again do all these calculations based off of your total daily energy expenditure alone. And then if you're looking at gaining weight, you would do all these calculations based off of a surplus value, or approximately 250 calories over your total daily energy expenditure. At that point, everything else is going to be exactly the same for your calculations. I hope all that made sense. Now, if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them down below in the comment section. If you guys made it this far, I would really appreciate you hitting that like button. Definitely helps out, helps the channel keep growing. Helps these little guys get some more loves. Every like is one more puppy hug. Mwah. Isn't that right, Nala? Every like gives you one more kiss. Mwah. Kiss you right in the nose. Boop. But, like I said, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully, guys, you learned something and taken something away from this. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Got great content coming at you almost every single day of the week. But that's all for now. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. I hope you guys have learned something. I hope you've taken something away. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.
For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, lab on me going all the way. For the record, ain't trying to link, no time to waste. For the record, yeah. For the record.